Hello, everyone. My name is Chase McKinney, and I'm with Regent University in the School of Psychology and Counseling. Recently there have been some changes that have occurred with the style that we use for our professional writing. So, what I want to do today is I want to first talk about the importance of scholarly writing, how to format a paper, specifically a student paper in APA 7th edition, and talk about the differences between APA 6th and 7th editions. So, with that, let's get after it. Scholarly writing is the way in which we express ourselves, academically and professionally. And scholarly writing is material that you're writing for a very specific purpose, even with a very specific audience. And what separates this form of writing from others is that it's based on evidence, not on biases, not on necessarily even subjectivity. There's not assumptions that are with it. It's objective with its tone and the substance in which that you're including in what you're doing. It's clear, it's concise, and it's mechanically correct. So scholarly writing requires that we have a different set of standards that other types of writing might have. So, for example, with scholarly writing, you'll want to, like I said, avoid biases, incorporate your evidence, and create these strong arguments that might differ from, creative writing, for example, or even expository writing. Again, scholarly writing requires us to have concise, precise, and also clear language for what we're doing. So with that, we do this by using a certain type of style, essentially rules, guidelines that inform us on the manner in which we communicate to others through our writing. So that is, how do we format things? How do we make things uniform with a paper? How do we incorporate sources both in the writing and in our reference lists? We might have an idea of something if we're defending our thesis, our hypothesis of something, but we have to have something to support it. And that's the importance of using scholarly sources, and scholarly writing results in developing and creating scholarly sources. So what's the big deal? Again, this is not a subjective form of writing. This is an evidence-based, supportive material type of writing. The difference between going from a creative writing to even an undergraduate level of writing is that there's more expectation in your writing now. So we want to make sure that you're communicating effectively and in a manner in which the field, so the mental health field, the counseling field, has standardized it. And we do that using APA style. Now, when we're using references, when we are citing sources, there's a difference between what a scholarly source is and what a non-scholarly source is. So journals and magazines are these important sources for up-to-date information in a variety of disciplines. But there are periodicals that are divided up in this area of literature. So we have scholarly, we have substantive news or general interest, we have popular news, popular magazines, and sensational ones. And the one that we want to focus on the most is, of course, scholarly journals, because they are going to have more of a serious and kind of sobering look at things. They often will have, charts and graphs, and they're testing things. There's a methods and a results section typically with most scholarly articles. And that's going to change depending on the type of research, but that's neither here nor there at this point. But typically, scholarly literature, journals, things of that nature are going to have graphs and charts for one. And not only that, but journals will always cite their sources in the form of, it could be footnotes, could be a bibliography, it could be a reference list, in-text citations, things of that nature. And it's often written by someone that is trained in the field. And the purpose of scholarly writing is to report on original research or an experiment, like experimentation type of thing, to make information available for others. And journals, specifically scholarly journals, are typically published by a specific organization, like a professional organization. So, American Counseling Association, the American Association for Christian Counselors could be one, for example. The Christian Association for Psychological Studies could be another one. Depending on which state you're in, it could be the Texas Counselors Association. They have their own journal. There's a journal for marriage and family. There are different organizations that are going to have their own professional journal that is typically refereed, which means that it's submitted to editors to look it over, their peers to look it over, and to essentially deem it worthy for publication. So that's what sets it apart from what we're looking at compared to like an entertainment magazine, or even just news in general, is that scholarly has more substantive, sobering information with experimentation, evidence, and it's been supported by other writings. So it's important that we use these sources as a level playing field for the work that we do in research, both now as students and in the future as professionals in the field. We want to have evidence demonstrated, gathered, experimentation done and evidence gathered in order to support the work in which we are doing. And while we can become informed in a way with other forms of writing, the thing that's going to set us apart, the thing that we need to do, that the profession demands of us, is using this scholastic writing, these referee journals, this scholarly work. And you can do all that through the Regent Library. There's the database that you have access to as a student. So, and if you're watching this and you're not from Regent University, then your university will likely have some kind of similar access to databases for you to search and gather, read, and research these different journal articles. There's a certain assumption that whenever you're quoting an article, that you've read the article, not that you're just finding one sentence to support a claim that you're making. There has to be a certain degree of understanding when it comes to the work that you're doing as a scholar. So it's important to have read and understand the message of what's going on in this particular scholarly academic piece of work. Just a few more things about scholarly writing. Like I was saying, there's peer review. There are these scholarly journals that we were just talking about, but there are other sources that could potentially be used with your writing. So nonfiction books could be one. Websites that might end with .edu, .gov, .us, .uk, and usually .org. So you got to be careful with that. And your instructor might talk to you a little bit more about that. And of course, reference your APA 7th edition style manual regarding some of these websites and the use that you implement, that you do with them in your writing. With the difference again between peer-reviewed and scholarly journals as well as with just magazines, there's typically an author with credentials, an abstract, few if any advertisements. It's typically black and white, right? Like it's kind of boring looking, in a good way, and there's usually these articles, these journals that are published quarterly, typically, unless the organization states otherwise. But typically, you're going to have a journal put out every quarter. Now, the difference between a magazine and these academic pieces of writing, like I said, these peer-reviewed and scholarly journals, is that with magazines, there's an author that's sometimes listed. They're like, what the heck is an abstract? I mean, abstract is kind of like your sneak peek at what you're going to be reading in a journal, so that you can gauge on whether or not you want to read that, because it might not even be what you're trying to look up and research and better understand. Magazines also are going to have a good amount of advertising. I know the magazines that I've looked at, whether they're, outdoor, like backpacking type magazines, there's an advertisement on almost every single page or every other page. And you're not going to see that with this particular type of writing, with academic writing compared to, magazines and things like that. Magazines are going to be a lot shinier. They're going to have more flash to them, more pictures, more graphics. And typically they're published weekly, monthly, or bi-monthly. So there's more frequency with what they're doing in magazine compared to the scholarly nature of academic writing, of scholarly writing. And you want to make sure that you avoid places like Wikipedia, personal websites, blogs, biased websites and magazines, and works of fiction. There, of course, could be exceptions to that depending on what you're trying to write, but that it really shouldn't happen. Like it's could be exceptions to the rule, and again, it's going to depend on what it is that you're writing, what it is that you're trying to cite and do in your scholarly writing. So, for example, that could be you're writing some kind of opinion piece, you're writing a literature paper and need, fiction for your findings, for what you're communicating. But in the end, you just need to evaluate your topic and find the sources that are most suited to your needs. Again, we're doing scholarly writing. So there has to be a certain level of rigor that you're doing when you're writing this. So that's why we have to go to the databases. That's why we have to read the journals. We have to attempt to understand them and maybe read them again, and not just try and find a sentence that's going to meet the need of an opinion that we might have for a paper. We really have to understand the meaning and the context of what's being said to a certain extent and use that to support the claims that we're making in our writing. So in general, ask yourself, who is writing the content? Are they an expert? And are they profiting from the info? What's the piece about? Is it opinion or is it fact? Where's this information coming from? And where is the proof? Are there reliable source citations to back up claims? And that's what we're getting at with our scholarly writing. Are there sources of information that's going to back up the claim of what we're saying? So if we're writing something about Adler, well, we probably want to look up some stuff on Alfred Adler and Adlerian research. If we're doing something on cognitive behavioral therapy, we might want to look at some journals that are going to, and journal articles that are going to be talking about cognitive behavioral therapy. Textbooks can be good, but they should not be the main source that you're using, because they're more general information, and your instructor will tell you if the textbook is something that they would like you to cite in a paper or in a discussion board. But it should always be about the journal. So with that, let's go ahead and move right along and talk a little bit about how to format an APA 7th edition paper. Go through how to format an APA 7th edition student paper. Now, I'm going to be using a PC, so this might look a little different if you're using a Mac or any other type of word processor to format your paper, to write your paper. And with that, we want to make sure that we have a couple settings set up correctly. So the paper is going to be double spaced, so we want to make sure that we have it just set to double space right away. We also want to make sure that the margins are 1 inch all around. So what you can do is you can go to Layout, Margins, and go to Normal. If you need any other size margins, you can choose from here, or you can go into Custom Margins, but Normal is what we're going to be using. Now I have the paragraph button enabled, which is the Show Hide formatting, and you can see the shortcut key for that is Control*, Control**, and you can use that to see kind of how far down you're going when you hit the Enter button, how far over you're going when you hit the Tab button, and of course where all your spacing is whenever you hit the space bar. So what we'll do just real quick is we want to make sure that there are 3 of these suckers showing. So from the starting point, we're going to hit Enter twice, and then we're going to center this. Now for the title of your paper, you want to make sure that the title and any subtitles that you use are bold. So I just hit Control B. It's also Command B if you're using a Mac, or you can simply just use your mouse and hit the B for bold in the top left corner. So we'll just do title of paper. Now, there are, like I was starting to say, there are a couple options of what you can use for the font that you use. So in this case, you can use Calibri 11, Georgia 11, Arial 11, or Times New Roman. So what I'm going to do is just use Times New Roman 12, and that's just going to set it for me. So moving forward, I'll be using Times New Roman. So again, title of paper. And then if we have a subtitle, we'll just hit Enter and just type whatever your subtitle is. And you're going to use sentence casing. So all the important words are going to be capitalized. So make sure that your title of your paper lines up with what it is that you're answering, what your assignment is, what you're investigating, things like that for your student paper. And from there, we're going to unbold. So I'm just going to hit Control B, or like I said, or Command B, or you can just simply use your mouse to click the B button in that top left corner. So I don't have bold on anymore, and I'm going to hit Enter. And this is where you're going to type your name in. So you'll do first, middle initial, and last. And as a student, you are, believe it or not, you are affiliated with a department. So for the purposes of this, with the Department of Counseling at Regent University, this particular author, me, I'm affiliated with the Department of Counseling at Regent. So what I'm going to do is just type in Department of Counseling, comma, Regent University, just like that, And this is part of a class, so I want to make sure that it is, the correct class is appropriate on this title page. So for the purpose of this, I'm just going to use one Counseling 570, multicultural counseling. And the instructor of record would be Dr. Jacqueline Smith. And we're going to finally put the date down. So in the United States, we would write the full month, the day, and the year. Now, if you're elsewhere, you might do number first, but for the United States, this is how we do it, and this is what is expected when you do it. Now, you want to make sure that there is a space between either the title or the subtitle and your name. So because we have a subtitle, we're just going to hit Enter once, and we have that space. And this is how you correctly format your title page. Now, we are missing just one thing, and that is the page number. So what we're going to do is we are just going to go to Insert, page number, top of page, plain number 3. And what we'll do is we'll make sure that it's all the same. So we were using times New Roman 12. So we're going to make that times New Roman 12 also. Now I just hit escape and closed out the header. So from here, we'll just hit the enter button and it'll go right below the date. We're going to hit insert a page break. Now for this, your introduction, you would never put introduction. We don't do that in APA style. So what you're going to do is you'll use the same thing that you would over here. Okay, so it's just title of paper, subtitle of paper. And you want to make sure it's also bold. Okay, and there you go. And then you would put whatever it is you put in there for your introduction. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy and paste some stuff here so that you get an idea of what the level headings look like. I think it's pretty self-explanatory for the most part of what this looks like and kind of how you do it. So here it is. So this, again, this is your introduction right up here. And then this is, where you start to talk about things. I've mainly seen, I've seen a lot of papers where they really don't go much beyond level 3 in student papers, but that doesn't mean that it wouldn't go into a 4 or 5. So there's absolutely zero pressure for you to use all 5 headings. You're going to use more headings the more and more specific you're getting with whatever it is you're looking at within each heading. So it should be like a funnel where it funnels down, where you get more and more specific instead of more and more broad. So just kind of think of it that way. So level 1 could be, like, just as an example, this could be like a methods. Level 2 could be like a procedures and participants sort of thing. Level 3, level 3 heading could be something like, I don't know, Christian pastors in Canada or something like that. So with these, you want them to still be, sentence casing. So you can kind of see, like, we're talking about what the methods of this particular assignment was about, and kind of talking about it. We're discussing the procedures, we're discussing the participants, but then we're getting super specific within the participants, the procedures and participants, where we're focusing specifically on Christian pastors in Canada. So I hope that makes sense as you're going down. And you would kind of, use your level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 headings as you go on. As you go from one major section to the next, you're going to start over with a level 1 heading, basically. So you would use, this is a level 1, again, level 2, level 3, 4, 5. So down here you might do another level 1 for whatever it is you're going to be writing about. Now, again, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. So what we're going to do is we're just going to talk about references now. So whenever you do a reference page, okay, you are going to make sure that it gets its own page. And again, references is going to be bold. It'll be centered, just like a level 1 heading is. So we're going back to like the basics on this one. So references, okay, it's centered. It's on its own page. It gets to hang out by itself. And then what you're going to do is anytime you have an author or a set of authors that you're citing, you're going to do an alphabetical order. And what you're going to do is you're going to put it over here, and it would be like a okay, so this would be like the author name that would go right here. And please reference your APA 7th edition manual on how to cite an article, cite an author, cite someone in your reference list. You want this to be in alphabetical order by author. And just a quick little trick is that whenever you have, I'm just going to type out gobbledygook right now. Whenever you have someone like an author like this, not a real author, of course, is you want this to have a hanging indent. So the way you can do that is I highlighted it and hit Control T. T as in Tom. T as in Tango. So let me just do that again. So highlight it, Control T. It's Command T if you are on a Mac. And that is the basics of how you format an APA 7th edition paper. So we went through the title page, the body of the paper, and references. And the in-text citations are largely the same with APA 6th in that you'll do your author, year, page number for in-text. And if you're starting them off with a sentence, then it would be like your author. So like something like that. Okay, so this could be one example of an in-text citation. Another example of this is, so quote, blah, 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 and then end quote, and then we'll do Bob, ampersand, Tom, 2005, comma, P1. Okay. So these are just two examples right here of in-text citations. Of course, they're going to be connected to your whatever you're writing. And again, make sure you're looking at your APA 7th edition handbook on how to format this. And some of the main differences between APA 7 and 6th is it comes down to the bold of the title of like all these headings. So in APA 6th, this is not bolded, and by extension, this is not bolded. So your titles were not bolded on your title page and your introductory paragraph. Your level 1 headings are still bold. Even your level 2 are bold. Okay, but even like with references, this was not bold. So there are some very subtle differences. We went from having one space to two spaces between sentences. So that'll take a little getting used to for those of you that are used to that are used to 6th edition with your writing. So I hope that this video has been informative and that it's been a good primer for you as you get started using this new style that APA has just put into effect recently. Again, I really hope this was helpful. I'm happy to help. And best of luck to you as you start your writing at whatever institution you're with.